Mm, Come on, PP, get it together. Oh, hey, welcome back, Honors. Welcome back, PP. All right, anyway, now, so welcome back, Honors. Welcome back to it. Welcome back to your flip classroom where we're picking up on our new unit where we're going to be talking about pretty much the world, like actually in general, from the years of about like 500 to 1500 AD, right? So we left off in our last flip and in our last review on Vuba Day talking about the Byzantine Empire, right? We were discussing the Byzantine, we were talking about its growth and stuff like that, talking about how it was a trade hub, how it was established by Constantine, stuff like that. Isn't it interesting, PP? Thank you. All right, so thank you for the love. I appreciate it. Now, like, the biggest thing about it, though, in general, is you also have to understand that we were, like, talking about the growth of the Byzantine, how it went through many different names, Constantinople, Byzantium, Istanbul, and we talked about also how they're going to be like the thing that survives the fall of Rome, right? They were the eastern half of the Roman Empire that survived the fall of Rome in general, and is going to be able to hold on and keep safe a lot of these different Roman theories of intelligence and ideas and Greco-Roman ideas and the theories of Aristotle and Plato. All those things are going to be held onto and kept safe in many of the libraries that actually existed inside of Constantinople. I know, it's so difficult to just not be the center of attention, isn't it? So the big thing about it is, though, is let's pick right where we left off with that review, and we were talking about the trade hub aspect, right? We talked about how, like, Constantinople was a super powerful, very strong city because you could find things in it that you couldn't find anywhere else, like silks, teas, spices, porcelains, textiles. But the really big reason why you could find them there and not anywhere else is because Constantinople was that end of that massive trade route, the Silk Road, that went all the way from East Asia all the way through into Constantinople. And then traders, if they had the ability to access it, would go to Constantinople, pick up these different items, and then head on back into Europe with them, right? Selling them to some of the wealthier families that actually still existed there, right? Now, the thing about it is we will talk a lot. Most of this unit will be discussing, actually, you are a mess. We'll be discussing, actually, what's going on in Western Europe during this time period and what they're going through, right? No biting. That's not nice. And, like, so, really quickly, though, now we're going to be getting into their probably strongest ruler that they ever saw, right? Who's going to come pretty soon after Constantine in general, and he's a figure by the name of Justinian, right? Justinian is going to show up, and he's going to rule the Byzantine in the early 500s AD. He's going to become their emperor, and he's going to actually do a lot of organization and proliferation of intelligent ideas, and also the proliferation of a very large military that's going to help spread the boundaries of the Byzantine to its highest peaks that it actually had at any given point. So going into it, though, you have to understand he ruled from 526 AD to about 565 AD, and he was a very good ruler. He was really good at what he did. He was not only good as a military leader, but he was also very good as a political leader as well. He rebuilt the city of Constantinople in grand style, used massive amounts of money that was being made through a more efficient taxation system, and then also through the goods that were coming in and out of that city, and he used it to rebuild it, kind of like Augustus rebuilt the city of Rome, right? Remember when we talked about Augustus and he said that I found Rome a city of brick and I left it a city of marble? Justinian's really, really similar in that aspect. He's going to rebuild Constantinople with a huge amount of new architecture, one of those including this very famous building known as the Hagia Sophia, right? The Hagia Sophia was the largest Christian temple that up to this point had ever been built, and it was designed in a very, very unique style of architecture, Byzantine or Eastern Roman architecture, right? And you can see the elegant domes, the clean lines, the symmetrical design. Now, ignore these guys. You see these towers on the sides? They were added much later. Those are called minarets. They're actually Islamic prayer towers, which will give you a little bit of an indication who's going to end up taking over the Byzantine Empire a little bit later on, the Islamic kingdoms, I believe under the Umayyad Caliphate, right? Now, the thing about it, though, in general, is it's such a famous temple that it even still serves today as a very important place where many Christians feel is like a point of like pilgrimage and a point of like a very, very important place to go and see, as one of the largest and strongest Christian temples that had ever existed in the 500s AD, right? Now, if you look at the symbols that are on the inside of the building itself now, though, those are all Arabic symbols right there, which means that, of course, it is no longer a Christian temple, that is now actually an Islamic mosque, right? But again, that has to do with the transfer of power of this area of the world to a new group of people, right? Now, one of the coolest things about the entire design, though, is the dome up here at the top that has these windows that actually like show off the light and provide a huge amount of natural light into the entire room. And apparently, if you go there at a certain time of day, the light shines so brightly through those windows and through those portholes right here that they say that it looks like the dome is being held up by a chain from heaven, right? It almost looks like it's not connected, which is really, really cool, right? So that is like actually just kind of one particular building that was redesigned by Justinian. And also you're going to see a booming of a very specific style of Byzantine art during this time period, which is mosaic style art, right? So it's actually like mosaic style art actually started in Western Rome. The Byzantinians are just going to kind of solidify it and make it even better. Now, the big thing that Justinian was really responsible for was the invention of this thing called the Justinian Code, right? The Justinian Code was a new type of law and law system that was created in Justinian's Byzantine, right? Now, why is this thing so important? Why is it such a big deal? Because it kind of did a better job of ruling over people than the Roman law known as the 12 Tables ever did. Now, when we talked about Roman law, when we talked about the 12 Tables, you could easily compare that to Hammurabi's Code, right? And we can look at both of those old law systems, 12 Tables and Hammurabi's Code, as being great that they existed, but they also didn't do a good job to, like, you know, address this whole issue of class, right? For example, as we remember in Hammurabi's Code, if you were wealthy, you could simply pay your way out of punishment, right? The 12 Tables, if you were wealthy, you had the ability to read them, whereas the plebes did not, right? Well, most plebes did not have the ability to read and write. So the thing about it is, though, in general, it took the plebes going on strike just to get the 12 Tables to be posted in the forum where they could actually access them, right? Now, on the other hand, Justinian's Code is going to be a form of civil law. Now, civil law is very important to the progression of Western civilization's history. Is it not, PD? So, like, the big thing about it, though, in general, is it's very important to the progression of Western civilization's history because civil law is a law that applies to everyone equally, regardless of class, right? So Justinian's Code is the very first thing that comes along that actually, like, tries to punish, reward, and or, like, treat crimes same throughout classes, regardless of, like, anybody's social standing. And as we know, back in Rome, in Western Rome, if you were a senator, you could, like, murder somebody and nothing would ever happen to you, right? So it's important to understand that his contribution, that idea of civil laws, laws that apply to everyone no matter what their class is going to be very important, and it's Justinian's biggest contribution, right? And he also is going to expand the borders of the Byzantine to the largest levels that they had ever been seen up until that point, and actually is going to retake some of the areas of Western Rome, right? Now you see the dark red line around there on the outside? That's the extent of his empire. He actually retook Rome, retook southern Spain, retook northern Africa. However, after Justinian, they are going to start shrinking, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Justinian was also, just like many of the Roman emperors, was an autocrat, right? As in, he actually is going to rule with complete and utter authority, and he's not actually going to rule with a republican system. As an autocrat, he did not have any checks or balances on his power, and he is going to actually have the ability to rule how he sees fit. That's an autocrat, a sole ruler with complete authority, or an absolutist if you want to look at it that way as well. But that's a little bit more of a 1600s, 1700s AD thing that we're going to get into in Western Europe when we talk about Louis XIV, the Sun King, who Louisiana is named after. So going into it, though, he was this very, very intense autocrat. But it's very hard to say that he didn't rule with anybody else because he had a very, very strong person at his side, right? So the thing about it is, why is he so powerful? A lot of it has to do with the fact that he was supported by a powerful woman. Now, the big thing about it, though, I always love talking about this woman because I think she's so cool, right? I think she's so cool. She's aggressive. She's intense. She does not mess around. She is not here to play, or she does not care about your feelings. Her name is Theodora, right? And Theodora is Justinian's wife, right? The empress of the Byzantine from about 527 to about 565 AD, right? Theodora is a very intense figure. Theodora does not care about your feelings. Theodora is here to rule. She is not here to try and just be like, so like, now the thing about it, though, in general, is she is a ruthless politician and is Justin's main advisor and co-ruler, right? They actually met in a really, really interesting way. Apparently, she was a dancer, quote unquote, and like literally apparently they met when she was a commoner, right? And she's going to ascend through the ranks, and she is actually going to move up through society and eventually become the empress when actually she meets Justinian as she was a dancer and grew her reputation and stuff like that. Well, with that, though, Justinian falls in love with her, marries her, and this is going to create a lot of dissension amongst the different ranks of people that rule, or that try to help Justinian rule. His advisors and the wealthier people in the Byzantine hated Theodora's guts because she was a common person and stuff like that. Now, Theodora, though, did not care about their feelings. Theodora actually passed new laws to limit their power even further. Every time Theodora and Justinian walked into a room, the richest people in the Byzantine Empire had to lay down on their stomachs, prostrated in front of everybody, and then kiss their feet as they pass by, right? Theodora was like, I am not about to let these people try to limit my power, and she is going to try and create a system where she has just as much power as Justinian does. And speaking of that, Justinian actually got sick at one point. During the Byzantine's rulership and under the Byzantine Empire, there was this thing called the Plague of Justinian. Write that down real quick, right? Plague of Justinian, right? The Plague of Justinian, we believe, was an early outbreak of the Black Death bubonic plague bacterium known as Yersinia pestis, right? We actually believe that that bacteria had a small breakout in Byzantine Empire while Justinian was in charge, and Justinian himself actually got it. And while he had it, who ruled for him? Theodora did. She did not let those advisors rule for her and her husband. She did it for him. And while he was sick, she actually was in charge, right? And then also, she is a ruthless politician that does not care or mess around about like being able to put down rebellions. There was a huge rebellion that broke out in the Byzantine Empire, actually all about chariot racing teams. So there was like a blue team and a green team that were actually in these chariot racing teams, right? And these teams kind of organized themselves together into big mobs, right? And they actually had a huge revolt and a riot that spread throughout the entirety of Constantinople, and it all started in the Hippodrome, right? Now, the big thing about it, though, is that Justinian was freaking out about these riots, and the riots had basically overtaken the city. And he looked over at Theodora, and he was like, we should run, right? We should flee to Rome and stuff like that and get a base of operations there, and from there we'll figure out how to come back and how to reestablish our rule. And Theodora looked at Justinian and was like, no. And she said one of the most baller things you've ever heard in your life. She literally looked at Justinian and says, I would rather be buried in purple as a royal than die as some commoner, right? Like so she refused to run away, right? And actually, she is going to be one of the biggest people that comes up with a way to actually solve this entire revolt process. The way the revolt actually worked is she was like, look, let's just get both the teams into the Hippodrome. We'll bribe one of them to stop, and then we'll just kill the other one. How's that sound? And then that's actually literally the route that they took. They bribed the blue team and then killed all the green team. So now, with that, though, there was also a very strong military underneath Justinian and Theodora, and they had an army equipped with this new weapon that no one had ever seen, known as Greek fire, right? Greek fire was this really intense flamethrower, basically, right? They would take a large pressurized vat that had a flammable oil inside of it, and they would pump as much air into it as possible, creating as much pressure, and then let the valve off, and it would spray this like gasoline-like oil and that over a flame, and it would literally cook boats in their harbors, right? So it's a very crazy thing. We'll look at pictures of it and stuff like that in class, but it's absolutely wild. It's basically like the very first use of like napalm or a flamethrower that the world had ever seen, right? Greek fire. So looking at that as well, though, you have to understand there's another major thing that's going to come out of the Byzantine as well. It's going to have some big problems after Justinian, right? So now I showed you that map that actually you can see the extent of Justinian's rulership while he was in power. After Justinian dies and after Theodora dies, and the rulership then passes to a series of other emperors and autocrats that come up in the Byzantine's going to begin to shrink, right? And a lot of it has to do with the fact that even though they had Greek fire, even though they had a large military, even though they were protected on all sides by walls and stuff like that, and then also by waterways on three sides as well, the Byzantine is going to be a hot area for a lot of people to want to take, right? They were attacked by Slavs, Persians, Vikings, Huns, Turks, like the Seljuk Turks, the Ottoman Turks, like a lot of different people are going to keep constantly trying to attack the Byzantine Empire. Why are they doing this? Because Constantinople is a massive trade hub. It's extremely wealthy. It has access to many different ports and areas. It has access to not only the Mediterranean, but the Black Sea as well. So it is a very important city that other groups and other countries and other empires want to take over, right? And the other big thing about it in general is like, well, that is the why, right? It is that very important area that everybody wants to take over, smack right here in the middle of all these different trade routes, because Constantinople is right there, right? So another big thing that you have to understand, a big reason why the Byzantine is going to actually start shrinking after Justinian, is you got to kind of like think back to when we recorded our last flip about the Byzantine Empire, right? We were discussing in the last flip about the Byzantine Empire a bunch of different stuff that made the Byzantine strong, right? We talked about how they were protected by waterways, they had a very large defensive wall, they had a lot of money because they were in the middle of the Silk Road and stuff like that. There were items there that no one else could find anywhere else. But another thing about the Byzantine that united them together, that kept them a very strong empire and a very strong city in Constantinople, has to do with the fact that they were one religion, right? Well, why was this important? Why is it important to understand that one binding religion during this time period, that right after the fall of Rome, why is that going to make the Byzantines strong? Well, it's going to help prevent feuds and riots and other different issues of like revolts and rebellions. And so this one unifying religion was a very important aspect that kept the Byzantine really powerful. Well, then in 1053, you're going to see a very important event happen, right? In 1053, you're going to see a very weird thing where the Christian church is actually going to split into two brand new types of churches, right? That's why it's known as the Great Schism, right? Schism literally means a splitting of two things, right? So the church is going to split Eastern and Western, okay, after Justinian. Now, this is going to happen in 1053 AD due to a lot of differences in worship, okay? So the thing is like there was a very, very large amount of disagreements in the new Christian church on how people were going to effectively worship, okay? There's going to lead to a lot of arguments, right? A lot of different like disputes, and it's going to lead to the establishment of two new types of Christian church. You're going to have Roman Catholic, which is going to be focused on the Roman side, the Western Rome side of the entire empire, and then you're going to have Eastern Orthodox. Now, what are some of these big disputes and stuff like that during the Great Schism? Well, I had to text my guy, Mr. Mathern, to actually talk to him about it, right? As you can see, I got this little screenshot from Gab right there because he's absolutely the man, and he helped me figure out all these different ideas of what helped lead to the Great Schism in 1053, and I believe y'all have even talked about this event in your class, in your religion classes already. You just gotta love Mr. Mathern. I know, he really is just awesome, isn't he? Now, the thing about it in general, though, is he was talking to me about it. He was like, oh, well, the Great Schism is going to lead to the establishment of that Roman Catholic Church in the western half of Europe. And then the eastern half of Europe, you're going to see that Eastern Orthodox Church. And he told me to just simplify this whole reason why they disagreed with each other down to bread, popes, the sun, and some images, right? He told me that one of the biggest disputes was bread, right? The Eucharist, should it be leavened or unleavened? Roman Catholics believe it should be unleavened, whereas Eastern Orthodox believe that it should be leavened. He also told me that they also believe it should be dipped in wine before you take it, which is absolutely wild to me. Popes is another big thing, right? Who is leading the church? Well, in the Eastern Orthodox Church, they don't have a pope, whereas in the Roman Catholic one, they do. They have a person in the Eastern Orthodox Church that kind of helps run the entire thing, but he's called the first amongst equals and stuff like that, which is a little bit of a different kind of setup of a church hierarchy, right? There's another big thing as well, this idea of the son, right? That's called apparently filioque is what he told me about it, or explained to me that it was. Filioque apparently is like in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, whereas the Eastern Orthodox believes it should just be the Father and the Holy Spirit, right? And that they're actually the union of the things. And also images is going to be a dispute as well, including iconography, statues, how much like churches should be dressed up and stuff like that. Well, this is going to lead to that split of the entire church, and it's going to lead to the weakening of the Byzantine as well. Now, some of you are like, wow, that's absolutely crazy, Mr. Terry. Eastern Orthodox, I don't know if I've ever seen that. You actually have. This is the Greek Eastern Orthodox Church that's right on the corner of City Park in New Orleans. They have Greek Fest there every year, and they are actually an Eastern Orthodox church that has actually made its way over here to the United States, right? So with that as well, though, you're also going to see the fact that the Byzantine is going to begin to fall, right? Now, after about 1053, the Great Schism is like a big indicator that in the next several hundred years, that the Byzantine is just going to keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And towards the end of the medieval period, it's going to start going on a downward trend, right? The Crusades are going to deal a major blow right after the Great Schism occurs. No more than 50 years later, the Crusades are going to start sweeping through Constantinople to try and get to Jerusalem. And a lot of these misguided crusaders are going to actually burn and destroy things inside of Constantinople on their way through. And that's going to dramatically really hurt the the Byzantines' ability to be able to actually fight and stuff like that. Because as you can see, the Crusades like literally move through right here just to get down to Jerusalem. That's going to leave Constantinople very weak. And Constantinople is going to fall to the Ottoman Turks in 1453 AD and is going to turn into what is known as the Ottoman Empire, which is sometimes considered the end of the Middle Ages, depending on who you ask. The name is then going to be changed to Istanbul, and the Byzantine is going to become the Ottoman Empire, which is a Muslim empire. And that's it. That's our end of the Byzantine Empire stuff right there. Very good job with your very good attention. I know every one of y'all was like, and just like making sure that you're paying super close attention. Y'all did so good. You're crushing it this week. And guess what? Y'all get to listen to me 3 different times this week, right? Because I have you Tuesday, I have you Wednesday, and then we have a digital day on Thursday, right? So we're going to get a lot of stuff done. Be prepared. I'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one.